Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are tackling something that is, well, it's fundamental to how organizations run, but it's often a bit of a hidden mess.
Hidden in plain sight, you could say.
Exactly. We're talking about how companies manage employee time off. I mean, it sounds simple, doesn't it? You request a vacation, someone approves it.
It should be simple. But if you're in any company with, say, more than 50 people, it almost never is.
In fact, it's usually not a functioning process at all. It is, and I love this phrase from our source material, chaos dressed up as process.
That phrase is just perfect. It perfectly captures it. We're doing a deep dive today into a definitive buyer's guide for time off tracking and, modern leave management software.
Now, this might sound like a dry topic.
But the stakes are incredibly high. We're talking about compliance, we're talking about payroll accuracy, and maybe most importantly, employee trust.
And when you try to manage all this with scattered emails and manual updates, you end up in what our guide calls the spreadsheet graveyard.
The spreadsheet graveyard, a truly fitting name.
A place where good intentions and accurate data go to die. So our mission today is pretty clear. First, we need to identify the tipping points, the things that prove the spreadsheet era has to end. Then we're going to nail down the absolute non-negotiable features you need in a modern integrated leave solution. If you want accuracy and efficiency, you have to know what to look for.
And that efficiency is desperately needed. HR teams are just drowning in this stuff.
Okay, let's unpack that, because the administrative burden it's so much more than just approving a summer vacation request. It's this huge, multi-layered headache for HR.
It absolutely is. I mean, when you talk about manual PTO tracking, you're talking about a person, a human being, doing dozens of complex, repetitive tasks that a machine should be handling.
Like what specifically?
Okay, so think about it. HR has to constantly monitor accrual rates. Those change all the time based on an employee's tenure or their job or even the state they live in. Then they have to calculate all these complex carryover rules at the end of the year. They're manually chasing managers down to get approvals. They're trying to enforce internal policies on top of all the legal compliance. It's a lot.
And then, after all that, comes the big one. Making all that data talk to the most important system of all.
Exactly. Payroll.
Yeah.
The final and most painful task is reconciling all that time off data with payroll. You have to make sure every hour is categorized and paid out correctly.
So someone is literally taking data from one place, messing with it in a spreadsheet, and then typing it into the payroll platform.
That's often what happens, yeah.
That reconciliation process alone just sounds like a massive vulnerability.
It is. And here's the kicker. The data shows that over 50% of large employers are still using manual or, homegrown systems for this.
Over half. That's actually staggering.
It is. They have modern software for everything else, CRM, ERP, you name it. But this core process is stuck in, 1998.
And it's not a niche problem. This affects almost everyone.
It's universal. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics found that in 2024, 88% of full-time private industry workers get paid vacation. So this is a massive operational liability for almost every company in the country.
So what's the real cost of getting this wrong when you stick with those manual methods?
Well, manual tracking is basically an open invitation for errors, and those errors lead to investigations, especially if you operate in more than one state. You miscalculate someone's leave eligibility or you apply a state law incorrectly, and you've opened the company up to Department of Labor investigations, back pay liability, and some really serious financial penalties. The risk just multiplies with every new hire.
So if the sheer administrative pain isn't enough to sink the spreadsheet, the compliance risk definitely should.
It has to.
Let's shift to that then. There are two huge drivers making this kind of legacy management impossible now.
Yeah.
The rise of remote work and the explosion of regulatory complexity.
And they are working together. The way we work now in distributed teams has changed everything about visibility. And at the same time, what we're legally required to manage is it's increasing exponentially.
Let's start with distributed teams. I mean, Back in the day, a manager could just glance across the office and see an empty desk. That's gone.
It's completely gone. And that means absence visibility is no longer a perk. It's an operational necessity.
You need a system for it.
You do. If your teams are spread across time zones, managers need immediate real-time clarity on who is out and when. A spreadsheet that gets updated once a week in HR just can't do that.
Okay, and then you layer on top of that the regulatory nightmare. Federal FMLA has been around for a while, since '93. But the real explosion is at the state level.
That's the critical point. As of 2025, you've got 13 states plus Washington, D.C. with their own paid family and medical leave programs.
And these don't replace FMLA, right? They stack on top of it.
They layer directly on top. So you have to manage state law, federal law, and your own company policy all at the same time for the same employee.
And the state laws are almost always more expansive than FMLA.
Precisely. They might cover, say, domestic partners or apply to much smaller companies, manually figuring out who is eligible for which type of leave, under which law, based on their location. It becomes basically impossible without automation.
And now there's this critical 2025 DOL guidance that makes it even harder for manual systems.
Yes. This is a huge point of friction. The Department of Labor clarified that employers cannot unilaterally force an employee to use their paid vacation time when that employee is receiving state PFM benefits.
Why does that complicate things so much for HR?
Because it demands incredible policy flexibility.
Yeah.
Your system has to be smart enough to know, okay, this person is in California, they're taking state paid leave, so we cannot deduct this from their company vacation balance.
And a simple spreadsheet with one column for PTO used can't handle that.
Not a chance. You are guaranteed to be out of compliance instantly. That's conditional logic that only modern software can handle.
The complexity is just undeniable. So, okay, if we all agree the spreadsheet is officially dead, what comes next? Let's get into the specifics, the non-negotiables. This is the checklist our listener needs.
All right, feature 1, the thing that stops the endless email chains. Self-service and intuitive workflows.
Meaning the employee can just do it themselves?
Yes. They log in, they see their exact balance, they pick their dates, and submit the request instantly. And for managers, the approval has to be a single click from the system or right from their email.
And the real power of that single click is?
It creates an automatic time-stamped audit trail. Every single action is recorded, no more disputes, and you have instant proof for any compliance audit.
And it probably saves HR from answering that same question, how much time do I have left? 100 times a month.
100 times is probably an understatement.
Okay, that brings us right to feature 2. How do you eliminate those arguments over balances?
With real-time accrual and balance calculations. This is so critical. The system has to do all the messy math automatically. Pro rata calculations, per pay period accruals, enforcing carryover rules, all of it.
So the number the employee sees is always the right number.
Always. It has to be current and accurate, instantly. If the balance isn't right, the whole system is failing.
Now for the one that feels like the foundation for everything, HRIS and payroll integration.
This is the absolute non-negotiable, the single most important piece. The sources stress this over and over. If your leave system doesn't talk seamlessly and automatically to your payroll platform like ADP or UKG, you've just created 2 disconnected digital silos.
Right. You're just moving the manual data entry from a spreadsheet to a different screen.
Exactly. You're not solving the problem. Every approved leave request has to flow directly into payroll, categorized correctly without a human touching it. The number one reason these implementations fail isn't bad software, it's bad integration.
2 sources of truth for one number is just perpetual chaos.
You got it.
All right, feature 4. This builds on the compliance nightmare we talked about. Multi-state compliance and custom policies.
Yes, the system has to handle unlimited types of leave. FMLA, vacation, state sick time, you name it. And this is crucial. The policies have to vary automatically based on the employee's location, their job type, their tenure.
So it just knows the sick leave rules are different in Seattle than in Miami.
It has to. And it must automatically track FMLA eligibility for every single employee. You cannot trust a person to do that consistently across a large workforce.
And finally, what about just using it for managers and employees on the go?
That's feature 5, centralized calendar and mobile access. Managers need that visual, color-coded calendar. They need to see at a glance that half the marketing team wants the same week off in July.
It lets them be proactive instead of reactive.
Totally. And mobile access is just table stakes now, isn't it? Employees have to be able to request time, and managers approve it flawlessly on their phones. If the mobile experience is clunky, people just won't use it. They'll go right back to email.
So once you have that checklist, you're ready to look at solutions. Let's quickly talk about integrated platforms versus point solutions, and then hit the big one, ROI.
This is a key difference. An integrated HRIS platform connects time off directly with everything else. Payroll, onboarding, core HR data. It's all one system.
And a point solution.
A point solution just does leave. And while it might be powerful if it doesn't have perfect real-time sync with your payroll, you're back to having data silos and fragmentation problems.
Okay, that makes sense. But the question from the CFO is always going to be, what's the return on investment? We're replacing a free spreadsheet with a paid system.
And we have hard metrics for that. Let's start with labor savings. For HR, the time they spend on manual PTO admin drops from, say, 12 to 16 hours a month down to just 2 or 3.
Wow, that's a huge drop. And that time can be used for more strategic work.
It's the difference between administration and strategy. HR folks say they lose over 11 hours a week to this stuff. Freeing up that time lets them focus on things that actually drive the business forward, like performance management or talent acquisition.
And then there's the direct savings from just being more accurate.
Yes. Payroll errors related to time off drop dramatically, from maybe 5 to 7 errors per pay cycle down to less than 1. That saves time, money, and a lot of employee frustration.
But the real clincher has to be compliance cost avoidance. This is like an insurance policy.
It's the ultimate justification. The cost of noncompliance is so high that the automation makes the system worth it all on its own. A single Department of Labor investigation can cost upwards of $15,000.
You avoid just one of those, and the software is paid for itself.
Precisely. For a typical 300-person company, the estimated annual benefit from labor savings, fewer errors, and risk mitigation is consistently between $30,000 and $35,000. The ROI is immediate.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
So this deep dive really shows that leave management software isn't a luxury anymore. With remote work and all this regulatory pressure, it's the baseline for accuracy and efficiency. It lets HR stop being data reconcilers and start being strategic partners.
And if you connect this to the bigger picture, it really touches on employee well-being. Think about the friction involved in the old way. When the process is confusing and you're not even sure your balance is right, you hesitate.
You hesitate to take the time off you've earned.
Exactly. The data says only 32% of U.S. employees took a full week off in 2024.
Which brings up a critical question for you, our listener. Does making this process simple, transparent, and frictionless actually empower your employees to use the time off they've earned and, frankly, that they need?
It shifts the focus from anxiety about the process to the benefit itself. So the question isn't just about streamlining HR. It's a strategic choice that impacts your culture, morale, and the mental health of your entire workforce. And that kind of trust is something no spreadsheet formula can ever replicate.